All right, Antonio, we've had such a rich conversation thus far, and I know one of the things we touched on was the power of asking questions, and you've written a book about asking questions, but I'd love to highlight just what is the benefit, where is the missing for most coaches and most salespeople around asking questions?
So that's a great question. Thanks for that. Perhaps I'll answer it this way. If you think of, so when I was planning the book, like why did I write the book? And so when I sat down with a piece of paper and thought, what are all the issues, right? What's going on? Where are all the blockages and the pinch points? And I tried to map out what the challenges were that we were facing. So just think about this for a second. If I'm talking to a prospect, right, or I'm arranging to spend some time talking to a prospect, typically, does the prospect want to give me a lot of time or a little time? What do you think?
Not much time.
So the prospect wants to give me a little time, but I want a lot of time. So as far as time is concerned, right, quote unquote time, we're not on the same page, fair?
Yeah.
Typically, the prospect wants me to do all the talking, like convince me why you should be in my, right? They want me to do all the talking. Trouble is, I want them to do all the talking because I want to figure out what their problems are, what their challenges are, and what we can solve. So we're not on the same we're not on the same page re time. We're not on the same page re talking, right? We're not on the same page re outcome. What outcome do I want when I'm talking to a prospect? I want a decision. Even a no's cool. A yes or no or a clear future, I want a decision. Trouble is, the prospect wants to give me a really, really, really hearty maybe, right? That looks great. Let me think about it. So as far as outcome is concerned, we're not on the same page. In terms of airtime, we're not on the same page. And what do they want to do? They want to interrogate me. And all I want to do is interview them. So in terms of style, we're not on the same page. You get the idea, right?
Yeah.
We're not on the same page. And so when I drafted out, what are all of the pinch points? What are all the speed bumps that need to be fixed? Every time I talked about things like time, talking, outcome, strategy, when I drafted all this out, because I said earlier that I was at heart an architect, right? So I like to kind of map things and I'm very visual. It occurred to me that if we are asking the right kind of questions in the right way and getting permission to ask the right kind of questions, all of these things get resolved. And so the impetus for writing the book was, what are the challenges I'm facing, right? Personally, right? In business. When I mapped them out, I thought, well, questions fix that. Questions fix that. The right questions fix that. The right questions actually moved me up a little bit in that. It's questioning. We're all really, really, really good at answering questions and we're awful at asking questions. And there's a lots of reasons why, and it's tribal and it's all in our lizard brain and all that stuff. So that was the impetus for me to write questions. And then I thought to myself, well, are there good questions? Are there bad questions? Are there questions that are rhetorical that should be answered? There was one there. Or are there questions that shouldn't be answered? And then I thought to myself, how do we guide somebody to where we want them to go without telling them that this is where we want to go? And again, it's questions. So all of that, I mulled around, machinated on for a while and thought to myself, I need to write a book telling people that look like me how to ask really, 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 really good questions. Because there are a lot of awful questions, right? And people think, oh, you're just telling me to ask questions. No, I'm not. I'm telling you to construct very intentional, because we've only got a limited amount of real estate, right? If I'm talking to a prospect, if you're talking to a prospect, how long have you got? Let's say 30 minutes, first conversation. How many questions can you ask in 30 minutes? In a meaningful conversation, how many? What do you think, Dave?
Depends on their response time. If they're 5 minutes and long-winded, you've got about 6 questions.
Right. Not a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
Not a lot of real estate. So if you've only got somewhere between, let's say, 6 and 10 or 12 questions, do we want them to be averagey questions? No. We want them to be rock star questions, every one juicy and a work of art. Great. Sit down and write those out. Write those out. So that they know you are not like your competitors, because your competitors answer questions, and they answer dumb questions at that. So I don't want you to answer dumb questions. I want you to ask really, really smart questions and just get permission, and then learn things like the universal yes.
So let me ask you a quick question on the back end of that.
Yeah.
If you took you see a lot of salespeople, or you probably hear a lot of salespeople and how they ask questions, what % would you say are in the category of they actually ask good questions versus the percentage of salespeople that don't?
All of the ones that I train do.
Absolutely.
99% of the ones I don't.
Yeah. And I think that's a fair point. I work with a lot of people, and I often find that we're not skilled at asking really good questions. So it's crucial.
Right.
Yeah.
It's critical. And there's also, there's so much work we do with asking questions. If the first question I ever ask you is, hey, David, would you consider yourself a helpful person?
Of course.
Well, now you're trapped in the helpful tribe.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to be really helpful, right? Because you just told the world that you're helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
I like it.
So there's a lot of, there's a lot to asking. There's a lot to get in.
Yeah. Well, I've got the book on order. It hasn't arrived yet, but I'm looking forward to digging deeper, and I'm sure I'll have more questions.
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
But Antonio, this has been great. The other thing I just wanted to touch on real quickly, we touched on earlier in the conversation, was you work with a lot of people who are really good at what they do, and you coach them on what they do. But what are some of the things that you look at and you say, these are the things that they most often are in need of coaching around or could do to up-level their game? What are some of the commonalities there?
Well, that's a great question. I think that, in broad terms, I would say things like, emotional intelligence, blind spots, ego, self-awareness, those kind of things, just in generalities. That being said, and as soon as I answered that question earlier, and I thought, I didn't answer it well. We don't train or coach. We don't take on any client unless we've first assessed them, right? None, right? Nobody. And we do a bunch of assessments. We've got to get our X-rays and MRIs and blood tests, right? Because you can't be a doctor and prescribe the medicine without having done that. And so so let's say, just for a sake of argument, if your issue was you have a high need for approval and you're the CEO of an organization, that's one of the first things we have to fix, your high need for approval. Because if you have a high need for approval, that bites you in the bum in so many ways, right?
Right.
You recruit wrong, you don't hold people accountable, you don't deal with change, you don't fire the people that need to be fired, you don't hire the people that need to be hired, you're not strong enough with your supplier, a million things. So if you've got a high need for approval, that needs to be fixed. You could have zero process orientation. And if you have zero process orientation, you want everyone else to stick to the rules, but not you, right? And people watch what you do as much as what you say. And so to answer the question better than I was tempted to earlier, everybody is unique. But if you're a coach out there and you're listening and you can hear this, and you're coaching people without first doing very detailed assessments and a really, really properly understood patient history, then you're then I'm going to accuse you of malpractice.
Yeah, I like it. Great. All right, Antonio, it's been a pleasure to be on with you this evening, and
Good.
I look forward to future conversations.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I've enjoyed